Hi, let's find an idea for a story you really care about, shall we? Hi everyone, welcome back to Flourish Books. I'm Angelina. So there are two kinds of writers. The ones that have ideas flying to them, like flies to a heap of dung. And then there are those who are wondering, how can I become a heap of dung? Sometimes it can be hard to come up with original ideas for new stories, but there are some great techniques you can use to find new exciting ideas that are not cliche. So I'm going to share them with you right now. I would like to put these techniques into two different categories: the ideas you get from the outside and the ones you get from the inside. But let me explain. The ideas you find outside are usually ideas that are inspired by something else, like for example by other books or movies. So the first thing you can do is make a list of your favorite books and movies and figure out why you like them so much. For example, one of my favorite movies is, don't judge me, Titanic. I'm choosing this one because it's just the easiest to explain, and I'm usually more into science fiction. So I loved how the audience already knew from the start what was going to happen to that ship, and yeah, you knew that the characters were about to go through an incredibly intense experience. And of course, as I said before, I am a girl, so I did enjoy the romance in that movie, but particularly because Jack, the main lead character, acted so selflessly. So there are two different things, one about plot and one about character, that I might be able to use for one of my stories. So the start of a concept would be to have a particularly selfless character or have someone live through a deadly catastrophe. Now you can figure out what your favorite books and movies are and make a list of the things you like about them. Another outside technique is to watch the news. There are so many highly emotional stories told in such a short time. You can take these stories and build your own book-length versions of it. The same goes for events in history, by the way. You can be inspired by historical events like wars, revolutions, etc. Another similar one is to use writing prompts or picture prompts. You can find them everywhere, just Google them. I highly recommend using Pinterest though. My account is linked below, and I have a board for writing prompts only in case you want to check that out. But yes, you can create entire stories around a picture or a single sentence that gets your creative juices flowing. These were the three techniques for outside ideas. Now the inside ideas I was talking about are things about yourself that you can use to inspire new stories. The first one is to use moments from your life that were special to you in whichever way. It can be something from your past, something that changed you, maybe a breakup or a special birthday, things like that. Or get inspiration from things that are going on at the moment, like a problem at work that you can't solve. Just look at your life and search for moments that affected you, positively or negatively, it doesn't matter. But these can inspire entirely new stories that stand on their own. Another inside technique is to look at what you care about the most. What do you love? What are your hobbies? What's your passion? What gives you butterflies? Apart from writing, obviously. Of course, you can always include readers and writers, but maybe there's something else, like dancing. Maybe writing a story about life as a hard-training ballerina is what you like to do because you've experienced it and you love it. Figure out what your passion is. And in the same inside way, you can create stories evolving around what you fear or hate the most. Maybe you hate that one girl at school, or people judging you by the way you dress, or pebbles in your shoes. Yeah, I'm not kidding. All of this might turn into more of a comedy, or you can use this as a first-line hook, and this can inspire you just like any picture prompt to create a story from there. Also, what's your biggest flaw? Do you have a trait you're struggling with? Writing a story about a character with that particular flaw might be not only interesting, but maybe even help you figure things out for yourself. I actually highly recommend this technique for psychological reasons. Now, these were the techniques you can use to come up with your first ideas. Now, how can we try to make these ideas more unique? Maybe your first idea was inspired by your favorite movie, and now you have a selfless main character who has to live through a disaster, only I don't want it to be a sinking ship. I'm into science fiction, so I'm going to place that selfless character on a foreign planet that's about to be hit by an asteroid. Yeah, that's a clear disaster. So my tip for you is to figure out what is different, what is special about your idea. Is it the setting or the environment? Is there maybe something unique about your main character? Or do you maybe have an idea for a big unique twist already? You can always ask what if questions. What if my main character wasn't able to leave that planet before the asteroid hits? What if he didn't care about the asteroid hitting in the first place? What if he already had a deadly disease? Now that paired with the selflessness, now that's interesting. How would you do do that? What if he didn't care about dying, but he was intent on helping others selflessly so they could get away? New story, okay, yeah, I'm intrigued. Another way to make your story more unique is to add a second idea to the mix. Another one of my favorite movies is Inception. Can you tell I'm a Leo DiCaprio fan? He just happens to pick really good screenplays. So I like about Inception a lot of things, but let's say I like the concept of the wife who lost sight of what reality was and ultimately affected Leo's motivations in that movie. So let's say my selfless character on that doomed planet has a wife who's slowly going crazy, and she keeps laughing about the fact that an asteroid is about to hit because she thinks it's not real. It would be interesting to see how it affects the lead character, because maybe being as selfless as he is, he must try to convince her to leave the planet while she thinks it's all a hoax. Another technique to make your story more unique is by taking your initial idea and see if you can make significant changes. And I mean things like changing the gender of the main character, or put the same concept into another genre, maybe change the setting, which I basically did in that Titanic scenario. Changes like these automatically change the entire concept. And last but not least, think if you can add interesting dilemmas, like a Sophie's Choice. In case you don't know what it is, it comes from the book Sophie's Choice by William Styron. It's a classic, and all you need to know about it is that it's about a mother who gets herself into a situation where she basically has to make the decision of which one of her two kids to sacrifice in order to save the other one. Now that's a dilemma. So these were all the tips I have for you today. If you come up with an idea you think sounds familiar or cliche, see if you can use any of these techniques. And yeah, it's the best to make a list of ideas and then choose the best one of those. And you really don't need to worry about coming up with a high concept. Look at all the Nicholas Sparks books, for example. They're simple boy meets girl romance stories, but Nicholas Sparks has a great way of making them sound really important. You can mainly do this by adding an underlying theme to your story, and that's what we're going to do next week. But for now, make a list of all your ideas and then pick the one that excites you, the one that scares you, because what is important is that it gives you an intense gut feeling that this story is important to tell. Don't think about what kind of audience you're going to attract. Choose what interests you. You're the one who's going to have the conversations with the characters for a very, very long time, and later you will have to read their words over and over and over. So make sure that you are interested in that story. So this is all for today. If you'd like to receive a worksheet to help you with this task, please go to my website and sign up for my email list. You will receive all the worksheets that go with each video on time. I'm probably not going to send out the ones you missed, so make sure to subscribe now, but you will always be able to purchase them for a few cents in my Etsy shop, or you can become a patron via patreon.com, where you can support my work on a monthly basis, and you will receive stuff including the worksheets plus the ones you've missed in return for your support. All the links are listed below. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, see you in the next video. Bye!